It is high noon, and we can bring you the fixtures for the Championship for the opening weekend. Wolves relegated up against Blackburn Rovers is their first fixture back in the Championship under Cesar Peixoto. Bolton Wanderers, Kevin Nolan's old club, of course, back in the Championship for the first time in 7 years, up against Preston, a derby for them. Bristol City under Michael Skubala go to Millwall, who are pretty close to getting to the Premier League for the first time last season. Charlton, 19th last season, take on Derby County, who under the new setup could have been or would have been in the playoffs with that 8th place finish last season. It's Middlesbrough, of course, involved in Spygate, had the reprieve, didn't end up getting qualified against Lincoln. It is Norwich City against West Bromwich Albion. Portsmouth take on QPR, Stoke Swansea, Sheffield United Birmingham, Watford Southampton, and Burnley against West Ham. Two sides relegated, of course. Burnley not under the management of Craig Bellamy, the breaking news today. West Ham sticking with Nuno Espirito Santo. And then it's Cardiff promoted from League One with that fascinating derby against Wrexham. South Wales against North Wales. League One, this is what we have for you. Notts County up against Leicester. That's Leicester's first game back in the division, of course, under Russell Martin. Oxford United relegated last season against promoted MK Dons. Reading begin against Luton Town. It's Barnsley Bromley. Andy Woodman leading them, Bromley, to this level for the first time. Blackpool take on Michael Duff's Wickham. Bradford against Peterborough. Burton Stevenage, Wigan go to promoted Cambridge United, Huddersfield against AFC Wimbledon, while Leyton Orient face Sheffield Wednesday, of course, with relegation, but all that optimism around Wednesday and the new ownership and hopefully new investment in the club. Mansfield against Doncaster, and then Plymouth take on Stockport, who just missed out on promotion, of course, against Bolton in the playoff final. And League Two, this is how they begin, is Newport up against Rochdale, who had that epic failure on the end of the season, but did qualify through the playoffs with that 106 points as well. A lot of people thought that was merited. They begin against Newport. Oldham up against Port Vale. Accrington, Colchester. Barnet v Salford, who had the heartbreak of that playoff final defeat, of course. Cheltenham Town, Steve Cottrell's first season fully in charge back at the club. Freedom of the town of Cheltenham take on Rotherham. Chesterfield v Fleetwood. Crewe go to Crawley. It's Gillingham Walsall. Exeter travel to Grimsby. Northampton Town, Kevin's old club, relegated, take on Ian Holloway's Swindon, who were just outside the playoffs last season. Tranmere v Shrewsbury. And then it's York, who won the National League with that 13th minute of stoppage time equalised against Rochdale in the final season. They begin against Bristol Rovers, who'll be hoping to be in the top half this time around. And you can scan the QR code to go to our fixtures page, where you can find everything you want to know about your club schedule as well. So, of course, you will have known that West Ham in the Championship for the first time since 2012. They start as the bookies' favourites for the title. Let's head to the London Stadium. We'll speak to our reporter, Chris Reedy, who's waiting there for us. Now, Chris, we've got the first six for West Ham United, of course, up against Burnley on the opening weekend. How will they view these fixtures? Because we're just talking to Luke and Kevin in the studio about momentum and the importance of a good start.
Yeah, Teddy, look, I think, as Kevin said, you'd always want a home fixture first, wouldn't you? But to be fair, look, in terms of West Ham's record against Burnley last season, they won both of their games. One of the only West Ham fans around us said, take that concert today here. So we haven't managed to bump into too many West Ham fans, but there was one there. He's not going to see them first at home. He's going to have to go to Burnley if he wants to see West Ham in action. But look, for the rest of those fixtures, if that man wants to see his team at home, Charlton is the first home game of the season for West Ham. They then don't have to travel too far for the next game, Watford, so a couple of London derbies for them. Then we get into Wolves as their fourth game. They lost and won against Wolves last season, but the last time they played them here at the London Stadium, that was a 4-0 win. Then we get into proper EFL, proper Championship stuff. 2 games in 4 days, home to Derby, and then the Kevin Nolan derby away to Bolton. So look, I think West Ham will be happy with those fixtures. It's a good chance to get some momentum playing one of the favourites, Burnley. But you know how we do the sort of when we do our golf graphics, we have the selected fixtures. I have to mention Millwall. We really should have a couple of selected fixtures there for West Ham. Millwall are going to be playing West Ham at the 19th of September. And then I think it's going to be Millwall's first ever trip to the London Stadium. That's going to be on 20th of February as well. A couple of fixtures that I know, well, West Ham fans and Millwall fans will be looking specifically for today, Teddy.
Yeah, well, Millwall might fancy that home game in September as well, given their season last season, perhaps unlucky to not get promoted. Nuno Espirito Santo is staying at the club. We know that, don't we, Chris? But Mateus Fernandes, Jared Bowen, a lot of interest around them. You're going to be covering transfers over the summer, I'm sure, with West Ham in mind. How much change is there going to be, do you feel, to that squad?
Yeah, I think there'll be a lot of change. It's really difficult to see a situation, I feel, where Mateus Fernandes stays at West Ham, just because there's so much interest with such big teams in for him. We know Tottenham now have entered the race to sign Fernandes, also looking at Sandro Tonali, aren't they? But we reported on Sky Sports News yesterday they're considering a bid of £85 million for Fernandes. I think West Ham would find that extremely hard to turn down. We know Manchester United also have a long-term interest in Fernandes. I think the interesting one is going to be Jared Bowen, because we know that his heart is here. We know his heart's at the London Stadium. We know he'd love to get West Ham up at the first time of asking. But if a Champions League club comes in for Jared Bowen, is he going to be able to turn that down? Are West Ham going to be able to turn down that kind of money? You would think, look, in terms of the money, is it worth keeping Jared Bowen anyway, even if they get a fantastic offer? Because we know he tear up the Championship every year. He's so consistent in the Premier League. So is it worth keeping someone like Bowen, who knows the Championship, he knows English football, he knows this club, he knows what it takes to get out of the league, be so consistent? But it's just going to be, all of those kind of scenarios that I've mentioned on his part, on West Ham's part as well. And I do have to mention one other player as well, and that is Crescencio Somerville, who played on the other side of the wing to Bowen. In such good form at the World Cup, hasn't he? And in such good form here, to be fair, at the London Stadium. So if West Ham were to get an offer for him, would that also, you feel that might be quite hard to turn down? And also for him himself, players don't often have an amazing World Cup and then return to play in the Championship. So, you asked the question, do I think it's going to be a busy summer here at West Ham? I think it will. They've got to get a new director of football. There's all the issues with the ownership of the club, isn't there? With Daniel Krasinski taking over the gold shares. We don't know what's going to happen with David Sullivan's shares as well. So there's so much for West Ham to sort off the pitch. There's so much for them to sort up at board level, so much for them to sort out transfer-wise. But at least now their fans know exactly who they're going to be playing and what the Championship season entails for them, Teddy. Yeah,
begins with that trip to Turf Moor. Chris Reedy, live at London Stadium. Thank you very much for now. Yeah, a lot of uncertainty, as Chris is saying there, Kevin, about your old club, West Ham. With all that in mind, do you still make them worthy title favourites?
I think if they manage to keep all of them, then yeah, you've got to.
Yeah.
I think that's
Kev's praying here, sitting.
Yeah, but look, it's going to be an interesting few weeks, before the season starts, and I think the biggest thing for West Ham is the people who are going to take over now. They've got to get got to get together. They've got to then decide whether is it Fernandes who goes. Has Jared Bowen asked if he would like to go? Have they had that conversation with him? Have they had the conversation with Fernandes, with Somerville? Because you need to know if these lads want to go and stay in the Premier League. Because if that's so, then you've got to start making, obviously, other plans to make sure that you're ready for them leaving the club and then getting somebody in. So I think that's probably the biggest thing for them, even with what's going on.
How delicate for Bowen at 29, though? Obviously loves the club captain, but that's a big age.
Yeah, and I think with Jared, look, he's a great lad. I love working with him. I think he's come on, every season in the Premier League, he's just got better and better. I think he should have probably went to the World Cup, in my opinion. But it's whether he's got them international ambitions again, or whether he thinks, know what, this is my club now and I want to get it back up. It's similar to when I was out at Newcastle. I left Newcastle to come to West Ham in the Championship because I wanted to get West Ham back into the Premier League. Because I wanted to work with Sam Allardyce again, and that's what Jared's got to decide. Does he want to stay in the Premier League, leave the club where he's so fondly known, or does he want to now think, no, I've got to have a little bit of selfishness about it. I've got to get back into the Premier League because I want to get back into that England squad.
And how important, Luke, whatever happens with the key players, that they replace them quickly if and when they do leave? We know the World Cup maybe affects it a little bit at the moment.
Yeah, I think there's been so much uncertainty at West Ham over the last few years. Lots of changes of managers. personnel always changing, and when they get someone that comes in like Somerville, and you've got Bowen, who's had such an impact, if they do leave the club, they have to do that business very, very quickly, because we're talking about when the season kicks off, 14th weekend of August. That will be here in a flash. So you have to get them players bedded in, understanding the way that Nuno wants them to play. And so if they do take that money, which is going to be a lot of money on offer for the 3 players that we're just talking about, so I think if they have that ambition to reinvest that into the squad, then I think they will remain favourites.
They've got to give Nuno the time. That's the biggest thing. They've got to give Nuno the time to be able to get his targets in, and then be able to embed them to be ready for that first game. Because you can never ever just say, oh yeah, it's going to be easy. You've got to win them. Got to win your first few games to put a statement out.
Tell you what about getting ready for games. What about West Ham getting ready to face Millwall then? First time in more than 14 years. This rivalry, though, resumed, as Chris was telling us, September the 19th. And I think it's at the Den to kick off, isn't it? How much does that one mean to both sets of clubs? I know you've got mixed memories of this one, haven't you?
Yeah, I have, yeah. No, look, it's a fantastic derby to play in. I mean, it's one of the, it was a... Yeah, I thought you might find this. I actually still don't think it's a red card, if I'm honest. But no, look, it's a.
Give it a rest.
I took the ball. Look. You can see I've took the ball and caught him a little bit, but Dunny actually played for me for Orient later on, and he said, I did fake it a little bit, you know what I mean, and did cry it in. But no, look, we managed to win that game 2-1. Look, it's a fierce derby, it's a fierce rivalry. I just hope, that the fans do it in a respectful way. It's going to be good for them coming to the London Stadium, to see them coming to the London Stadium as well. So, look, for me, what West Ham have got to do, they've got to get off to a good start, and then September the 19th, I'm sure we'll see a bit of fireworks.
A quick thought on that front. Millwall, they went close last season, didn't they? So they'll be perhaps optimistic.
Yeah, I think they were everyone's surprise package last season, but they continued to sort of fight against the odds all season. I don't think they had a massive budget, but Alex Neil, the job that he's done there and the experience that he has in the Championship, I wouldn't bet against them to be right up there again, competing for where they want to be. They've progressed as a football club year after year at the moment, and I think there'll be another surprise package. And again, we've got some big sides in the Championship, but there'll be certainly someone that will go under the radar and be ready for it.
Yeah, Alex will have loads of prep time as well. Let's look at what faces the other 2 relegated sides, Wolves and Burnley. This is Wolves' first 6 in terms of the fixtures. Wolves against Blackburn to kick off, and then we'll go full frame on this. I think I'll show you this at home so you can see it fully clearly. Blackburn at home, Preston away, Stoke at home, West Ham away, Birmingham away, and Portsmouth at home. What do you make of that for Wolves and Cesar Peixoto? It's a big start for him, isn't it, Luke?
It is. They'll be delighted they've got that home game on the opening day of the season on Friday night, and what a big chance for them against Blackburn. Blackburn have definitely improved towards the back end of last season, but they'll again have
Tony Mowbray coming in.
Exactly, which is a big positive for them and a club that he knows so well. But from a Wolves perspective, that's a tough opening 6 games, but Kev knows we'll talk about the next 20 games. They're all going to be tough, and I think that'll be a real baptism for Wolves to really open the season with that game against Blackburn.
We know Burnley are going to play, and we can show it to you now. We don't know who's going to be managing them, Kev. I just wonder if that's the biggest problem facing Burnley at the moment as they prepare for that game against West Ham United on August the 16th.
Yeah, and obviously we're all led to believe at one point that it was going to be Craig Bellamy, but we know obviously today you've broke it that it's not going to be him. So, yeah, look, that's something which needs to be sorted quite quickly, because they've got to give him time to be able to, because everyone's going back to, in the next week is pre-season starting, and everyone's going back, so they're going to need someone in place to be able to get hold of the squad and start putting their...
Nearly 2 months since Scott Parker left.
Yeah, and I find that incredible. I think it's quite an unusual thing to see, isn't it? Normally when a manager leaves, within a week or 2, we have a new new manager in place, or a coach. So yeah, it's been very strange. It looked like they wanted Craig Bellamy, so they put all the eggs in one basket, and it hasn't worked out. So hopefully they've got a plan B.
What do you think about the relegated sides broadly, Luke? Who do you think has got the best chances of getting straight back up? Burnley have been doing it, haven't they, since 2022? But there has been this flux, and maybe some people might say, actually, with Scott Parker in charge, I'd back them more.
Absolutely. I think that's the key point, Teddy. I think if you've got Scott Parker in charge still, I think they've got a much better chance than they currently sit now. I'm looking at that first 6 games for them. That's a real tough ask. I think that you looked at Norwich, one of the best sides from Christmas onwards in the Championship. They've got them in the first 6. Birmingham are going to come strong again. So it's one for me that if they don't start quickly, especially with the new manager and how long that takes, it's going to be difficult for them. But I can't really look past West Ham at the moment because, again, if they keep that squad together, I think they're going to have a massive chance. But ultimately, if they end up selling those players, they're going to have a bit more money to spend to then even strengthen even further.
Big conversations for Nuno to have in the coming weeks, isn't there, I suppose, and the rest of the board. Thank you very much for now, gents. Let's get to Southampton because they're a playoff final away from being in the Premier League, of course, before they're thrown out over the Spygate incident. They'll start the new season on -4 points, and we can head to St Mary's now and speak to Jeremy Langdon. Jeremy, good afternoon to you. We saw one of the Southampton squad, not sure if we'll get in trouble for this, on social media saying the Middlesbrough game is the one they're looking out for the most. Maybe it's tongue-in-cheek, but how long do they have to wait for that showdown?
Well, it's not at the start of the season, but obviously these games with Borough now seem like they're the hottest ticket in the Championship this season after Spygate. And Borough are back at St Mary's on the 28th of November. Remember that when they were last here on May the 11th, Southampton knocked them out of the playoffs. But then they were expelled for spying on Borough and two other Championship teams, given a 4-point deduction. And Borough and Southampton now are real rivals, aren't they, in this Championship season? Borough certainly with an axe to grind. And Southampton fans too, thinking that they should have been at Wembley for that playoff final. So Borough back at St Mary's on the 28th of November, and then Southampton going to the Riverside on the 13th of March. And I imagine the atmosphere there is going to be absolutely off the scale because those Borough fans are going to be gunning for Southampton when they go north.
They absolutely are. They start the season, as we mentioned, with that 4-point deduction, Jeremy. So they'll be hoping for a quick start to overturn that. And Spygate's side, they'll be looking to continue that form from last season because it was sensational.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's if Tonda is still in charge. Of course, he came out and apologised after Spygate. Dragan Solak, the owner, said, I'm not going to sack him. But the fact remains the FA could still ban Tonda. Will he be in charge for the new season? If he is suspended, are Southampton going to appoint an interim? Are they going to replace him? Are they going to sack him? These are the questions for Southampton fans and their players going into the new season. Their new season will start on Sunday the 16th of August. It's a lunchtime game away at Watford. Then they have two games here at St Mary's, Stoke and Millwall on the 22nd and the 29th of August. They're on the road in Birmingham on September the 1st. That's a night game at St Andrews. And then newly promoted Lincoln as well. Southampton on the road there on the 5th of September. And then it's Swansea at home to complete their first 6 fixtures. But as I say, if Tonda is still in charge for those games, that is a big question.
OK, well, let's assume he's going to be there for now. A couple of derby matches as well. I know Francis Bernali once said to me that he can't go shopping with his wife in Portsmouth because of the rivalry between the two sides. So when are they up against Pompey? Because that is going to be a huge local rivalry game, aren't they? 2 games.
Yeah, absolutely. Those games last season were epic. They were both draws, 0-0 here at St Mary's. Then the game at Fratton was 1-1, but an absolute bear pit atmosphere at Fratton Park. And it's going to be that again this season with Pompey fans rubbing the Saints fans' noses into it after Spygate. But the first match actually here at St Mary's on the 10th of October. So Pompey Saints, 10th of October here, and then back to Fratton, 27th of February. Quite a wait for that one. But I would guess it's going to be worth the wait because that atmosphere at Fratton Park will be something else for that game.
Certainly will. Jeremy Langdon, thank you very much for now. Live outside St Mary's for us. So, gentlemen, Kevin, we've got the extended or expanded playoffs this season. Goes down to 8th place. Does that work in Southampton's favour, or assuming Tonda Eckhart's still there, will he look at the form back end of the season and say, actually, we should be vying for automatic?
Well, I think obviously since he took over, he's done an incredible job, didn't he, getting to them where they were and the run that they went on. So you've got a hats off to them. Whether a lot of that was due to the Spygate, I don't know. But when you look at it from that point of view, it was a great run for what they were on. I think what it does is it brings in a lot of other teams, doesn't it? Because sometimes when you're in that championship and you're looking at it and you may be in that 10th to 12th position, you're looking at it and thinking, well, actually, it might not work in our favour, but because you've got it down to the 8th now, these teams like Southampton, who are going to start on -4, they'll be thinking, right, we've got a right shot at making sure that we get to a playoff position. So they've just got to start how they ended last season. Yeah. Forget everything else, and they'll have a real good chance of making that top 8, definitely. Yeah, if you include the playoff win over Borough over the 2 legs, Luke, 22 games unbeaten in the Championship. Is that why they've stuck by Tonda Eckhart despite all the Spygate stuff, and ultimately they'll back themselves to contend again? Yeah, I don't think we'll ever know how far and how many advantages they gained from that. But I think as a club, Southampton said they're not going to sack him, so they're behind him. He's in a place where the players are playing for him. I think
once they get going again in pre-season, they'll try and put all those disappointments that they've had to suffer over the summer to bed, and they'll be moving in the right direction. But I think definitely back to the original point of, like, if they are starting at -4 with those extra 2 places in the playoffs now, that'll give them that extra belief that if they can make a really bright start and continue where they've left off from the end of last season, they'll have a great chance of making those playoffs.
Yeah, I think over 46 games you can make it back quickly, can't you? Let's talk about Middlesbrough. Looked good for automatic promotion for a long time last season. Ended up in the playoffs, and the Spygate affair unfolded. They lost the playoff final after a reprieve to Hull. Kev, considering how draining that whole episode was for them, do you think there's going to be any kind of hangover, or are they going to be fired up? How would you look at that situation?
Yeah, I mean, I was lucky. I played in 2 playoff finals, won them both, and I remember, you know, we in the second one didn't really get it in the first one against Preston, when, because I was so young, I was just so happy with getting up. In the second one, you could see how much it had hurt the Blackpool players, but I think with what's happened, the way it's gone now, I think they'll use that as motivation now to sort of say, right, we're going to go again and do it again after the disappointments, the uncertainty of what was going to happen. Are they going to play in the final? Are they not? So to get there and then not just get over that line at the last hurdle is a massive for them now, to sort of start well and sort of put a marker down to say, yeah, we're going to go again and we're going to be there come the end of the season.
Yeah, emotionally it was mixed as well, wasn't it, Luke? The fact they were in the automatic spots for a long time. How do you see them this season? Are they going to contend again, or is it going to be hard to pick themselves?
That's a real intriguing one for me. I think I'm going to be keeping a close eye on Middlesbrough, because I think towards the back end of the season they had second position all but wrapped up. It was all in their hands for a long, long time. They spent the most time inside the top 2 the whole season. And then the season just seemed to peter out. Losing Hayden Hackney to injury was a massive blow to them. Whether they can hang on to him now over the summer is going to be another big conversation. He's certainly being linked with the Premier League move, because he was by far and away the best player in the league in terms of how he affected the team. So it's going to be a little bit of a transition, I think, for Middlesbrough this season. It's not going to be as straightforward as they had it last season.